Good morning, friends and family. For those that are new here, I'm Jody. I thought I would do a little walkthrough of our garden and kind of talk about our garden beds. So all of our garden beds are raised beds, and there's lots of reasons for doing raised beds. So one reason is I think that you can have a little bit less weed pressure with raised beds, which is kind of nice. A lot of people like raised beds because they're just kind of easy. You don't bend down as far. And then the other reason for raised beds is you get to control your dirt. And so for us, that was actually the reason, because we're solid rock. So growing in the ground wasn't really an option for us. So we have kind of a mishmash of raised beds. They have kind of morphed over the last couple of years. We started, we just started simple and started growing, and then we have added, and as we've added, we've learned more and we've made changes. So we're going to kind of go through our garden, and I'm going to talk about each of the styles of raised beds we have. And thanks for coming along. So Blue, I guess, he's not going to come with us because he's got a ball and he would much rather play with a ball than anything. So walking out to the garden, so we'll go out to the first part. So these were our first raised beds, and you can see they're certainly not perfect. They are built with just 2x6 wood, and these first three, actually Pete used a pickaxe and he pulled the rocks underneath them about 8 to 12 inches, just kind of depending upon the rocks. But these are just 2x6 lumber that we got at Lowe's or someplace. And the way we connected them was just using these little plates, these little construction plates, and you find these in the framing section. And so framers use these to connect things. And they're super simple. They're kind of empty right now, but we've grown a lot of food in these. So over here now, these are our permanent beds. These are our asparagus. But these are really, really simple. They're 2 feet wide and they're 24 feet long. So we started with just these three right here. And then we found that it was so much work to dig those rocks out. And we decided, we'd try it without digging them out. And so we built a couple more, and they work just as well. The reality is that most annual vegetables in the garden, the roots are only about 6 inches deep. So we actually have grown beets and turnips and some things like that in these. I wouldn't grow carrots in them. You got to have more soil for carrots, and your soil needs to be pretty fluffy for carrots. So this is kind of how our raised bed started. We do have irrigation to everything, and I'll talk about that another time. We do have a cattle panel in this one, and we have a cattle panel arch between these two. So this is how we started. Then we decided we would buy some beds. So we bought these 2 beds. These are called Birdie Beds, and they come from Australia. There are some companies now in the US that are making them. One of them, remember the name is Bigo, but there's a few now. These are really, really neat. These Birdie Beds are very great quality, but they do have some drawbacks. The first drawback is they're very expensive. I think with shipping and everything, these 2 beds were somewhere around $500. And if we only needed a couple, that would be okay. But for the amount of garden space we needed, that was not realistic. The other thing is these are very tall. And so the bottom of them, we did hugelkultur. So the bottom of them is basically filled, the first like 18 inches is filled with cedar that we chopped down from our property. So those were the next beds we put in. And then this, which you can't really see, was our next iteration. And this is built out of roofing material. And we had a neighbor that had roofing left over from a barn project, and they gave it to us. And so basically all we did was, this is called standing seam roofing. We folded it, and then we put screws in there and just created a bed out of that. And this was definitely an improvement, and this size worked really well. So then the next iteration was this one, and this is a monster. This was, we knew we wanted something really big. So this is 4 feet wide and 60 feet long. And we wanted it attached in some way. So this is what we came up with. And we actually used, this is just EMT pipe that we got at Lowe's, and we cut it and we drilled and put that in the ground. And then we built these sections, and they're just 2x4s. And it's a little wavy. It's wonderful because of the size, but it's got some big drawbacks in the fact that as the lumber has dried, so this bed is probably 2.5 years old, and so we've got a board here that's sticking out, so we have to fix that. But it's been a great bed, and again, this is got cedar logs in the bottom of it. So then our next iteration was this bed, and this is built the same as that other bed that was overgrown with sweet potatoes. This bed is the same material, but we were trying to be really brilliant and make it long, because for irrigation, lots of little beds is kind of hard. I mean, it's just a lot more work to do the irrigation. So this is kind of a fail, but I mean, we're growing a lot of food in it. What we found was going this long with this kind of bed just didn't work. So we ended up putting these wires across to help hold it upright. But I mean, it's not a real pretty bed, but we do grow a lot of food in it. So I don't have a lot of complaints. And then this is our current iteration of beds. And this is, again, standing seam roofing. We got this, I think, at Metal Mart. Someone had ordered pallets, and there was a pallet left over. So we got it really inexpensively. And we decided that we couldn't do this thing where we make one big long bed, because it just didn't work well. So now we do individual beds. So this is one 22-foot long piece of, it's 16 inches wide and 22 feet long, of standing seam roofing. And we snip those edges, and it looks the same on the bottom. And bent it over to make these rectangular beds. And so we have 2 of them here. And this is what's in our high tunnel. Our high tunnel is full of these. And then the other thing, so we tried a couple other things before we did this. And I've got things growing, so there's a screen over this so the chickens won't get in it, because it's got onion seeds in it. So this is a fire ring that we got at Tractor Supply. So we've got 2 of them. And we use these for things that are kind of invasive. So we've grown turmeric in here, we've grown ginger in here. We grow our horseradish in here, because if you leave one little tiny half-inch section of root, you will have more horseradish. It's very invasive. And it works really well for things like that, because it contains them into a really reasonable space. So this bed is just mounded up compost. We have weed cloth on the sides, just in the aisles, but under this we've just put cardboard down. So we didn't pull any rocks out. We put cardboard down, and then we just mounded up compost, and we actually did it in 2 mounds. We grew all our garlic here in this row this year, and it did well. We grew onions in this row, and now we've got butternut squash and pumpkins and some squashes and things, and there's actually even some peppers down there. So this actually has worked for us. We get a little bit more weed pressure in this, but not bad, because we don't till. And so I think we'll probably do more of this fall. When we clear this out, what we'll do is we've decided we're going to turn this into one wide mound rather than these 2 little mounds, because we think it'll just work better. So that's kind of all of our garden beds. We'll walk over here into the high tunnel, and you can see, so these are all those standing seam roofing beds, and they're different sizes just because we bent them different, but it's all the same exact size roofing. It's all 22 feet long and 16 inches wide. So so that's kind of what we've done for our beds. I think, raised beds, it sounds like it's a lot of work, and a lot of people feel like they have to buy things, but you really don't. We started out, I mean, we just bought some 2x6s, and nailed them together, and it was super, super easy. Um, so there's lots of different ways to skin the raised bed cat. Um, be creative, and don't stress over it, and they don't all have to match.